I'm not sure if I like that, but okay.
Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. I'm your host, JP John Poz. Of course, we have a very, very special guest today. He's from the legendary Crocket family, former color commentator for the NWA, of course, former executive producer for WCW. He is Mr. David Crocket. David, welcome to the two-man power trip. How you doing?
John, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, you said you're not a legend. I thought that was crazy.
Yeah.
Of course you're a legend. Come on, legendary family.
Well, I could say that my father is. He started the company in 1933 with boxing, the show and dances, Tommy Dorsey, Glenn Miller. Then he went on and he kept on running into this boxing and wrestling commission. And he finally said, well, what is wrestling? So that's how he got into wrestling. That because of those commissions. And he said, well, I'm a promoter. I'll promote anything. I mean, good grief. He promoted Lone Ranger and Lassie. So, yeah, he'd promote anything.
When did he get into the NWA? Do you remember, about when it was the 50s?
I want to say, all right, it was Luthez. I remember him coming through. Who else? Probably late 40s, early 50s. The stronghold with the NWA was with St. Louis, Sam Mushnick.
Yep.
And that group, you had Vince Sr. With the WWF, but he was also a member of the NWA. Did you know that?
Yes.
Yeah. And then, you had, who else? You had AWA in Mid-South out west. You had Mike LaBelle in California, Don Owen up in Washington State, the Funks in Texas. I mean, it was a very wide group of territories at that time. You were not supposed to go out of your area. And in most cases, nobody did. But then there was always, well, let's see if we can step over the line. And, and that got into way back when, before my time, pretty rough in that sugar in the gas tank, burning their wrestling ring, stealing talent. It was something else. My father never told me that, but some of the old timers that worked for him, and then when they couldn't wrestle anymore, I had a wrestler, Wally Dusick. Matter of fact, Wally used to wrestle some in carnivals before he got with my father. And Johnny Heideman, who came out of New York. And then, of course, we had Klondike Bill towards the latter part.
Good old Klondike Bill, who stayed in WCW forever, right? And
yes.
WCW.
Right. And then he went on to help us. He was part of the grounds crew. We owned a AA baseball franchise, the Charlotte O's, which were affiliated with Baltimore. He was the grounds crew for that.
Wow. Followed you guys forever. Damn.
Yeah.
So when you started making your foray into wrestling, how did you kind of get involved? Just because, hey, Jim Crockett Sr.'s son, you're automatically going to be christened into the wrestling business?
Oh, no.
Or didn't want you in?
No, he didn't.
Oh, wow.
See, I was the last one to go into the business. Let's say that. But before that, as a kid, it was, I wanted to earn money. Okay. So it was selling programs, taking tickets. When I could drive, we put out posters around the Charlotte area at that time. Then I would run tapes to different TV stations. Then I would transport my father to different cities once I was driving. Then I also helped Wally Dusick with the ring. and Wally was there again, that old wrestler, and I had some gloves on. I must have been about 14 at the time. God, those boards were heavy. And I had gloves on, and he said, "Take those gloves off." Well, then I'd get splinters and everything in my hands, and you got to toughen you up. But, no, my father did not want me in wrestling. I had 2 brothers, Jimmy and Jackie, that were in the business. And then my sister and her husband, John Ringley, he was the first one. Then they got divorced, and then he left. So, but I was one that really always, I wasn't talking about the business as far as the promotion end. I guess I was intrigued with the television end of the business, and that's what really excited me. Because he used to produce the program at WBT in Charlotte, Channel 3, and every Wednesday night. And I would go there and, just watching the cameraman, and I would go up in the control room, and I loved it. It was total chaos, of course, but, because they didn't know what was going on, because there again, it was always, the kayfabe, it was, we would not let anybody know what was happening. And it's pretty, matter of fact, my dad never really smarted me up. It's just, he didn't say, "Hey, this is a work." He said, "There's an easy way and a hard way. Which way would you want to do it?" So,
wow.
Yeah.
And then I didn't even realize this till recently, but you actually tried to be a wrestler at one point, right?
Well, because I was there again, single at the time. I was an amateur wrestler. And he said, "We don't have anybody in the family that has been in that side of the business, that understands somewhat that side of the business." So, I went, okay. And that was around, Jack and Jerry Briscoe, Thunderbolt Patterson. I had, let me see, it was Gene Anderson and Rip Hawk are the ones that worked with me. But I did it for about a year. And then I guess asthma. I had asthma that couldn't figure out why, that in the dust in the rings and all that, I didn't know I had it until, I was gasping for air. I think out of Columbia, they had to take me by the hospital, and I got a shot of adrenaline, I think it was. So wow. that killed it.
Wow. And you're wrestling under not David Crocket, right?
David Finlay. Yeah, that's my middle name. So
any memorable matches or nothing?
No, I was a jobber. I was a jobber. In other words, I could count the lights in the building. Yeah. and the simple thing was you have to learn how to lose before you learn how to win. That was what all the wrestlers told me. I guess when they were beating me, they told me that. But I remember the wrestler that I wrestled in front of my father at Park Center, Johnny Heidemann. And he was from New York and the Bronx, a Sicilian. And I hit him with a forearm, and he said, afterwards, he said, "David, in all my life, even being hit by a policeman with his billy club, I haven't been hit that hard." I said, "Well, tell you the truth, Johnny, if somebody shot me, I wouldn't die there because I was so pumped up, and it was, but that was the last time I wrestled from my father. It was best for everybody." But I understood, I bitched about payments. I mean, the payoffs. I might wrestle 2 matches, and I said, "What is this?" So Yeah, my dad said, yeah, you're one of the guys. But it helped me learn the psychology of the ring, and how the truly good wrestlers would work the crowd, how they would do certain things until they had them, in the palm of their hand, and then they could manipulate them up and down, because there again, the bad guy in most cases was the person that led the match, and just, it was amazing some of the conversations that go on in a wrestling ring that nobody hears, except the referee and the wrestlers. It's an art form. It really is, to be able to go out and it's ad lib. The only thing you really know is the ending, supposedly. But as far as whether it's 15 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, 90 minutes, all that in between, no, that was not arranged. It wasn't planned. And so those good wrestlers, and we were lucky enough to have quite a few, could go out there and really entertain and be true professionals.
With Ole and Gene, I could imagine them not being so easy on you.
Oh, no, Gene especially. Gene, he had, his hands were, was it Carl Gotch, I think, or would take and crush an apple with his hands. Well, Gene, he would do that. He could do that, but he loved doing, the arm, the hand thing, and so he would act like it's killing him, but he's killing you. He's squeezing your hands, or he'd come in and just pinch you. And Ole, he enjoyed just wearing you out. They were constant motion.
Ole seems like a bit of an ornery guy, even still to this day. Very ornery type
He's opinionated. I would say he's opinionated, which he's always been. And you have to listen and sort of filter it to see exactly what he's talking about. You've got people that bitch and bitch and bitch, but that's just their personality. They always have a no good, very bad day. And Ole always has a no good, very bad day. Or the kid that it's always raining on him. Well, that's Ole. But there again, smart. He was a good booker, excellent wrestler. I wish in a lot of cases he could coach wrestlers. He was so knowledgeable about the psychology of wrestling but he couldn't get it over, I think, to some of the younger wrestlers. It's hard, because every young wrestler comes in and thinks, oh, I've got it, and I've been to this training school, and nah, you don't. The camera has to like you. You have to pay attention to the audience. They have to like you or hate you. That you have to have the gift of gab as far as being able to be current with your conversation, get the point across, and not be stale, not always picking up somebody else's sayings. I hear that so much. And no, use your own words, not somebody else's. Be your own person. You don't try to copy. Be original.
Yep. It's funny, a few years ago, I called Ole to do a personal appearance because I had Arn. So I'm like, oh, it'd be great. Arn goes, call at your own risk. So, I call him and he basically, he goes,
Oh yeah,
F off, not interested, blah, blah, blah. I'm like,
right.
whoa. And Arn was like, well, you knew that was going to happen. I was like, yeah, I guess. But it's funny. His wife called me back and she goes, I apologize. He's not in good health. He doesn't want to do it, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Sorry, he went about it that way. I'm like, hey, that's him to a T. That's exactly the way I thought it was going to go down.
And and he's miserable, I'm sure, because, to be in a wheelchair,
Yep.
and I don't say he has somewhat dementia, I would think. Just he forgets things, but he was one of the best. He and Gene, they complemented each other. Gene was not a talker; he was a worker. You have some tag teams that everybody wants to talk. Nah, Gene could care less. I stuck a mic in front of him one time, and he looked at me and said, and just talked to Ole.
Yeah. It's funny because Ole, Gene, and really Blackjack kind of set the tone for Flair, really. I mean,
Yes.
in essence.
Yeah. Flair came in as the Ramblin' Rickus Rhodes. That's what he wanted to be. And he was like the Pillsbury Doughboy. He was so pumped up, you could pop him with a pin. But he was an Anderson, and plus he was also Gorgeous George. And he had that charisma, that natural camera-like thing. But, as far as the wrestling ability, he had the stamina, definitely. But then we started putting with the top talent. He learned from the very best. He didn't learn from jobbers and middle card wrestlers. He learned for the very best at that time. And if he screwed up, in the ring, they would let him know in a very stern way, I guess you could say.
With him too, you guys were in that horrible plane crash in '75. Who else?
Right.
Was it Tim Woods and Johnny Valentine?
Tim Woods. All right. Let me look at the plane. Okay. We had the pilot. Barry. What's Barry's last name? Farsi. Then Johnny Valentine was in the co-pilot seat. Tim Woods was behind the pilot. Rick was behind Valentine. I was behind Tim Woods, and Bob Bruggers was wrestling at that time. He used to play for the Miami Dolphins. He was sitting next to me. And Bruggers broke his back. Valentine broke his back. Rick cracked his. The pilot went through the dash. Tim Woods, I went through the seat, my head, and cracked the ribs right along the spine, towards the spine in the back. I had a severe concussion. I was probably, I think my wife said that it was at least 6 months before I started coming around. I dislocated my shoulder, which they didn't even know until they got ready to release me. They tried to give me crutches, and this right arm wouldn't work. I broke my ankle, shattered teeth, and I really didn't know that until, because I was so stitched up. I had so many facial injuries that they didn't know that until I got back to Charlotte, and the dentist that we were using at the time, he said, no wonder he's screaming when you try to give him something warm or cold. The nerves are just hanging there. So, and most of this, my wife told me, because I basically have very little memory. I think I remember some things, but then too, it might be somebody told them to me. I did Rick and I stayed in the same room. My wife said I was raising so much hell in a room by myself that, I wanted to be with Rick. And so they finally put me in there with him. So I think Tim left that night. I don't know much about it, but I do remember about, all right, it was a 45-minute flight. Okay. And about Florence, South Carolina, which is about halfway, he feathered, I want to say, the right engine. It was a twin engine Cessna Navajo. And I don't know why we didn't land, in Florence or Lumberton, North Carolina. They both have small airports which could handle that. But he chose to go on, and I think I remembered that going over the Cape Fear River, the left engine started. And then, I'm sitting there, and our son was 2 weeks old. So I'm trying to practice Lamaze because I didn't want to get knocked out, the wind knocked out of me. So I'm bending over, trying to control my breathing. And I thought I saw a buzzer go off. And a little before that, Eastern Airlines, there was a crash, an Eastern Airlines crash in Charlotte. It was foggy, and the pilot just flew it into the ground, and they were putting low warning lights in planes. And to me, I thought that was it. But my father-in-law, who was a pilot, said, no, that was a stall warning. So then after reading the FAA report, then, okay, I know the stall warning was when he was coming in, and there was a water tower that he was getting too close to, and he tried to pull up and stalled. And then he hit a railroad embankment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Scary stuff. Jeez.
I call Rick every year. So let's bend over and kiss each other.
Crazy. And to think, like, he basically came back and had one of the most legendary careers of all time. It's crazy to think, like, wow, the guy's been struck by lightning. The guy had a plane crash. I mean, crazy.
And John Valentine, I talked to him, and he told me, he said, Dave, understand that John and I were the last two people they took out of the plane. And John said that, he said, be glad you don't remember, because the smell of fuel, he didn't realize his back was broken the way it was. He thought his feet were pinned underneath, and they were going to have to cut him out somehow. But then he realized, as they were taking him out, that his back was broken. So, but he said, yeah, be happy you don't remember.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it like weather related though? Or
no,
he
ran out of gas.
Wow.
And you're supposed to have 30 minutes or 45 minutes extra fuel. No, he ran out of gas. Because he had too much weight on the plane. This is all the report now, that he had too much weight on the plane. So he dumped fuel, did not put enough fuel on, and he ran out. But the report also says, and he switched the wing tanks, I think, or I don't know, but somewhere there was 10 gallons, whether it was the main or the wing. And if he had switched to one of those, he would have made it. But I always wonder, that I really shouldn't be here, but I am. So the man up there, I feel, still has something for me to do. Maybe it's this. Maybe it's I'm supposed to win the lottery.
Could be. Could be.
Yeah, I know that, after WCW, I volunteered for Red Cross for 18 years on national disasters as part of it. So I did that, and I had a great time doing that. Believe it or not, I love chaos. Yeah. I said, this reminds me of a TV show. People going around, especially in the offices and so forth.
That crazy chaos of pro wrestling got you ready for American Red Cross.
That's right. I always loved it until the politicians got there, and then I said, all right, it's time to go. I was a disaster assessment manager, government liaison, which I didn't jump up and down about, and then information dissemination, which we take all that information coming in and put it into a sit rep and so forth to distribute to the different Red Cross people. And I was also a mapper, a GIS mapper. So I definitely enjoyed that. So, but COVID hit, and I figured it was time to back away.
Now, just to rewind back to Crockett or Jim Crockett Promotions, JCP, why your brother gets to be in charge of Jim Crockett Promotions when your father passes? How come it wasn't you or maybe Francis? Or why Jim?
Well, all right. First, Francis was not in, quote, the business. Her husband was.
Oh, John, right.
John, he was, after Dad passed away, he was the president of the company. But then the thing is, I guess he didn't know any better. He started having this affair, which, come on, how stupid is that? Especially, when you're dealing with the Crockett company. So he was asked to leave. And so he left. And so, my mother said, Jimmy. And I said, okay. So that was it. She was still alive, and, her word was law.
Did you agree with it? You're okay
Sure.
with it?
Sure. I'm a reluctant leader in that I will lead if I have to, but I'd rather be behind the scenes making things work than actually being out there. I think someone called me at one time a battlefield general. I'd like to be out there. We know the plan. It's your job to manipulate it, however it is, just to get it done. And so I enjoyed that. At one time, I guess later on, I felt I probably should have been the person to lead the company later on. In that, personally, I wasn't ready for it. I was. Jimmy was more. There again, I was the last one that came into the company. So as far as my father mentoring, he was Jimmy. Jackie was crazy man. He was just Jackie's Jackie. Great. He was the best cameraman out there. He would take a hit to get the shot. I really none better. But Jimmy was that way. But I know that I'm going to go forward a little bit. When we got into our mess, our fix, that we outran our money. We had plenty of money sitting in receivables, time sales. But, everybody's slow pay, God forbid, 90 days, 180 days. And we were just outrunning that, that money. And Ted Turner, saw an opportunity. I can't blame him. And he said, either you sell to me or I'll kick you off our station. I can stand it longer than you can. But I still did not want to go to Turner. Ric Flair did not want to go to Turner. And Rick said, David, I'll stay with you, whatever you want to do. And I was going to take the company into Chapter 11 and start with whomever we had, a territory again, or whatever you want to call it. And our other TV stations, we were syndicating shows to 82 TV stations. So I had a TV truck. I had all that, the editing, and so we could get by with that. We could get by and create we just wouldn't have TBS. I figured, and the governor of North Carolina called and he said we'd help. He'd help in any way. Jim Babb, who was president of Jefferson Pilot Broadcasting. Now, see, that is what I was going to do. He wanted to be partners. Jefferson Productions, which was in huge, as far as sports, the ACC, NFL, as far as their broadcasting trucks and crews and so forth. So that would have been perfect. But my mother, she said, David, sign the document. And some people think, you're crazy. I have that much respect for my mother, because my mother and father got us to the point, that we were huge. And to say no, that I couldn't do that. So I went kicking and screaming. But think about this. I and Jackie and I was the only one that really survived, at Turner. I became vice president, of production. So and Jackie was the cameraman. Jimmy, they asked to leave. Francis, they asked to leave. I was only supposed to be there 5 years and just a consultant. Then they asked me to stay on. So I ended up, 15 years until AOL bought Turner. And they didn't like us. Matter of fact, nobody liked us at Turner. When Ted, I guess I'm jumping forward. I hope you don't mind.
Yeah.
That when Ted bought us, he's a great visionary. But nobody at Turner, his boiler directors, nobody wanted us. Even though we had the highest rated shows on his station, in some ways, they hated our guts. And Ted would always throw us up to them saying, look at wrestling. They get all these ratings, #1 in their time period. They don't cost this much. Why can't you do this, Braves? And so forth, and just bang away at them. And finally, Jack Petrick was the first board person on the board that took us over. And then he eventually left. Jim Hurd, he left. Bob Dew, he left. Then you had, the Bill Watts, the Dusty Rhodes, Kevin Sullivan.
Kip Allen Fry.
Yeah. Alan. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And he was, I think Kip was accounting or something there. Yeah. He wanted to do a 3-corner ring. Yeah.
I just saw that last weekend. They did a 3-corner ring boxing match.
Yeah.
Tryout. That's weird. But okay.
Yeah. It is weird. That it doesn't give your opponent much room to move, and a 3-corner ring would make it's too condensed really for wrestling to get any flying moves in, I guess you might say. But yeah, yeah. And then, a lot of that crazy stuff we did, at Turner, Jim Hurt said, David, I can't control the wrestlers, but I can control how we present them. So that's when we started doing all the pyrotechnics and trying to lights like vents and so forth. And I never had a budget. It's just do it, which, that's hard to get used to.
What did you think at the end with that? Well, obviously, we'll go back, but just WCW, just to touch on that. So Jamie Kellner is in charge. He sells it for basically $4 or $5 million to WWF. Bischoff put an offer on there with Fusion Media Ventures for $65 million. Kellner doesn't get fired for making possibly the dumbest move ever. If you're like a real executive, wouldn't you be like, wait a second, you just lost $60 million on a deal? Oh, but we don't want him on our stations. Okay, but it's still $60 million more dollars. What happened there? I know Brad Siegel obviously got involved, and
Right.
supposedly Stu Snyder on the other end, who was Brad Siegel's college roommate, got involved on WWF's end, and he only worked for WWF for amount of time. So what happened there? What was really the downfall and the sale? Because it seemed like Bischoff had a pretty damn good offer on the table.
Right, and I also had Paul Beckham. Paul Beckham was at one point chief financial officer at Turner, and Bill Shaw. I talked to Bill about buying WCW, and Bill came back and he said, David, all they want to do is get rid of you. The deal with Vince. And it was not so much money. It was they were buying advertising, and they kept on saying it was $40 million, and $40 million. I went, and a lot of that is our own fault. All right, 2 years before that, I kept on telling God, hey, you're killing the golden goose. At one point, we had $18 million worth of wrestlers that were out because of injuries. They were ruling the roost. They, drugs were rampant. It wasn't good. That we did our best at WCW before the Time Warner sale when Bill Shaw took us over. And Bill Shaw was head of HR. He was the only person on the Turner board. He finally said, and he was an original Turner person, and he said, I will take them. And he was fantastic as far as how he managed. He let us take ownership in what we were doing. So it was not ruled by committee. It was, all right, you've got this project, do it. And matter of fact, I made a pitch, to Bill about, being the executive vice president. And he told me, he said, David, I cannot let a Crocket be there. I cannot do it. He said, but I'm going to hire this young man. He said, Eric Bischoff. I feel that he will be good. And I want you to guard his back and to help him in every way. And so that's what I did. Every week I'd have lunch with Bill, and, we talk things, and he said, how's it going? I said, he's learning. And a lot of times Eric would go over to Jocks and Jills and just say, I can't do this. I can't do this. And yes, you can. Yes, you can. And then look at him now, very confident. But then, Time Warner, and then it started being ruled by committee. And then you had Harvey Schiller, right? he came in and he didn't, wrestling was the last thing he wanted to deal with. So then it ended up all the crazies are running the store again. And that started to be the downfall, because with Bill, and we did it under his guidance, we made a profit. And we started taking things back from the different divisions as far as syndication and sales and so forth. And we had people in the office that did that. And it started clicking. We started clicking. And then Eric was terminated. There was and I wasn't there. I was on vacation. And it was Sharon Sodello and I think Gary Chester. There was a group part of it to get Eric out, which I think was a mistake in some ways. I know it was a mistake. That Bill had a pretty good leash on Eric. He would work with him, every week, about doing this, doing that, asking questions. But then it just, they got tired of us. And we were doing some stupid things too, even to ourselves, that, I ended up traveling, I think 4 tractor trailers, and a lot, maybe 2 of them would carry just stuff because they would never let me know what was going to happen. So I ended up trying to anticipate what was going to happen. So that raised the cost. I know at one time we were in Canada and they wanted an ambulance. Well, the ambulance service would not do that. So I ended up buying an ambulance. So what'd you do with the ambulance? Nothing. I used it, so I basically gave it back to the company that I sold it from and bought it from. Right. You did that stuff. We finally had to have an accountant come with us to sign checks just to pay for things. And, I got tired of using my credit card, even though it was a corporate card, still, some people, matter of fact, I had to charter a plane with that one time to pick somebody up from out in Oklahoma.
It's crazy to think like, okay, 83 weeks of dominance, which if you really delve into it was like more like 90 weeks. Then you delve into it even further. It was really 104 weeks out of like 120, basically 2 straight years of absolute dominance. But it's crazy to see it goes ultimate high to the ultimate low and the sale to Vince. I mean, it's surreal to think about that.
It was. And during that time of the ultimate high, it was that we were all working for that goal of beating, Vince every week. It was, we were all, next day, what's the rating? All right, what can we do? It was a team effort. And I mean, everyone that was on the crew, we were all just giddy when, we got the ratings, and everybody would continue. Everybody would work hard, in the truck, the lighting crew, the pyrotechnic crew, the sound crew, cameramen, all the TV guys, all the post-production and pre-production. Everybody was working for one thing, and that's to be number one.
And I talk to Kevin Sullivan all the time. We always kind of dissect like what
I love Kevin. I love Kevin.
He's the best. He's a nut, but he's so funny. It's like, what went wrong here? What went wrong there? Sometimes he says it's creative control, brother, and he throws that out there and stuff like that. And little chinks in the armor along the way creatively definitely didn't help either.
No, and we stopped working together. That they got paranoid for some reason about the dirt sheets getting, what we were going to do on TV. And so, everybody was pointing the finger at everybody. I said, who gives a damn about the dirt sheets? I mean, how many people read it? If you look at your TV ratings, I guarantee you only 1% of the rating, maybe not even that, reads the dirt sheets. We have to concentrate on television ratings, so, but they just became paranoid.
So what was your role though? Like specifically, so you're just a producer or executive producer? Like what's the title when you were with WCW?
Well, I was vice president of television production. At first, I wasn't. When Eric came in, he made me vice president of television production. When strange, I wasn't supposed to be there. Really, I had a consulting agreement.
Right.
5-year consulting agreement. After that, it was goodbye. But during that time, I would, go down there, stay at the Omni Hotel or the Marriott at the airport or the Marriott over on 75 near Marietta, and go to the office and just sort of be around and just do things. That it was, television. This was new to some people. It wasn't to others, and just help out. And matter of fact, the first time I met Eric, it was in Texas, not Padre Island. But it was in a town in Texas. He was brand new, coming in for the 900 line, and we were placing cameras and lighting and sound, and I was doing this, and he comes over, and I said, "Go stand over there until I get finished," and so that's my meeting of Eric.
He's probably got to remember this guy. He's bossing me around. Yeah. When you're like doing the production stuff, when actually Hogan comes in, we'll just kind of just go there
right.
for just
that
a second.
Was Eric and Jim Bass, not Jim Bass. All right, go ahead. Bill Shaw. Yeah, Bill said, Eric mentioned Bill, and Bill said that will put us on the map.
Did you agree? Did you think so too? I mean, you got the biggest star of all time entering the fray.
Well, it wasn't me thinking about. I was thinking about the money he was asking for. But when Bill said it was, it would. He is the number one person in the world. When you say wrestling, who do they think about?
Hulk.
Yeah, Hulk Hogan. So that instantly puts you on the platform. So that's what we did. And then after that, you had Kevin Nash and Scott Hall come, and it's started rolling.
Definitely, wrestling wasn't dead or in the doldrums, but it was definitely very low, especially from 80s to the early 90s when it was so high. You get to that mid 90s point, even Hulkamania was kind of here, and all of a sudden the NWO hits and it skyrockets. Literally saved the business and brought it back. So Hogan really is kind of credited for the 80s run and this run, which eventually launches Attitude Era and Steve Austin too. But it wouldn't have ever started, or no one would have noticed, had Hogan and the NWO not have been, a part of that. Well, like
right.
As far as production wise, did you do a lot of that backstage NWO stuff, black and white, nitty gritty stuff?
Oh, we did it. I should say the production crew did it. Television. That was getting to the point that started some of the. We didn't work together. Now Eric. It just, I don't know why. I love the gimmick, and I think I think we didn't take advantage of it as much as we could have, as far as marketing. You look at that black leather jacket behind me, that
yes.
We could have been, we didn't mass produce T-shirts. We would FedEx them to Japan. You even had the Japanese portion of the NWO, in Japan, and they were crazy about it. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
We had, Craig Leathers did a lot with that. Keith Mitchell did quite a lot. You look at Keith now with the AEW. There are a lot of people over there right now that were working with WCW.
Yeah. Neil Pruitt, of course.
Yeah. Now Neil, he did a lot. He was the voice of the NWO. Now he can definitely tell you the inner workings of, because he did quite a few of those videos, the NWO videos. Because we, were working on the arena show, the event side, and he would do all that production. And it was, some of it he could do in advance. Others they would do it that day and crank it out. And it's fantastic work, really.
It's crazy to think, though, with the NWO, like you said, like merchandising, marketing, and stuff could have been more. WWF is like 2 floors in the building, creative services, and then the marketing licensing department dedicated to that. You guys supposedly, as Kevin Nash infamously said, he goes, 2 employees in one corner of a building. Like, he's like, we should have had what WWF had with that kind of structure.
Right. But there again, hindsight 2020, right? I go and look at those T-shirts that I found. Yes, marketing those things that night. A lot of those T-shirts are crude T-shirts that we had. They were not really for sale at that time. They were just T-shirts that our camera crew and the staff were wearing to denote us from a spectator. So there's we learned.
I remember when I got the first NWO shirt, the like first one, it wasn't black and white. It was like black and gray and didn't say New World Order, just said NWO. I was like, wow, this is, it was almost like they rushed it out. I mean, as soon as we got that packet, that little flyer with the NWO, we bought it immediately. But I was like, wow, that's interesting. They didn't really, almost like rush job on the shirts. And then they turned it into the black and white with the New World Order.
It was a rush job.
Yeah.
It was. It was just boom.
Do you think that, just in essence, though, it does save the business? Hogan turns heel. I mean, it just creates this huge boom. I mean, it had so much eyes on you. Was it almost too much too soon for you guys, do you think?
No. When I say no, too much too soon. Good question.
It's almost like you're like flat, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, to the moon. 90 weeks or 83 weeks in a row of 90 weeks to the moon.
But I know that production-wise, we were cranking it out. If you're talking about the marketing end of it, we didn't take advantage of it. We, in a lot of ways, didn't have the people to do that, which we definitely should have. And it's that's one of the problems with Turner at that time, the Turner system family, as you had marketing, you have the 2 floors of marketing, but they want to market the Cartoon Network and TNT and Turner classic movies, the Braves, NBA basketball, and anything else but wrestling. Whereas they should have taken advantage of it. I've got a T-shirt around here, and it's upstairs, and has some of the Cartoon Network characters in the NWO. In other words,
cool,
it's, and so
like Space Ghost is wearing an NWO shirt or something.
Yeah, and some Brutus somebody, I forget. But yeah, the cartoon characters were wearing it, and then it had the NWO on it, and yeah, that's a classic shirt, and I think I don't remember anyone else having one. I don't exactly remember how I got it, but I did.
Yeah, it's pretty rare.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I guess instead of wearing it, I should frame it.
Yeah, I actually have a Hogan cut sleeve, cut in the back, like Terminator Hollywood Hogan shirt,
Mm-hmm.
where he's got his arm like that. I think that's pretty damn rare because I don't remember them like mass producing that either. But it's a very cool shirt. It's almost like he would, the one he would just rip in the ring. It was kind of had like tears and stuff, and it's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
But they should have mass produced that. I know 1 million people would have bought that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame. I'm just thinking, I wonder if the company that used to produce our shirts, I wonder if they still have the stencil.
Oh.
Yeah. The guy, West Benton. I need to see if I can run him down.
Yeah.
So, that would be something to start printing those things again. I wonder if we'd run into any copyrights or anything. I doubt it. I doubt, because I'm going to check on that.
Yeah. I know
I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, check on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know WWE still sells NWO merchandise to this day, and it supposedly sells pretty well.
Wow. Okay.
Which is crazy because I was watching wrestling the other night. I saw people with NWO shirts on. I was like, oh my God.
I did too. Every now and then I turn and I went, how'd they get that?
Right.
Yeah.
I saw the Kardashians were wearing an NWO. They probably have no idea what it is, but they're wearing NWO stuff. I was like, what? In 2021, they're wearing NWO. I was like, that's pretty cool. All right.
Yeah, it is.
Lasting impact of the NWO right there.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best selling shirts ever, even though they could have probably sold even more.
Oh yeah, it really was. And why didn't they crank them out? Why didn't they just? Oh well. Who knows, right? Who knows?
I want to go back to NWA for a second because I know we were talking a little bit off air. I was so enthralled with them when my sister's friend I'm like 6 years old at this point, but he's like, this is the real stuff. And he's showing me because I'm a Hogan fan and I'm loving the Hulkster. My dad's selling insurance in New Jersey to Pedro Morales. So I'm kind of more a WWF guy.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then all of a sudden he shows me this. I'm like, oh my God, they're bleeding like crazy. And Dusty, this guy is real and Flair and stuff. So what encapsulated NWA at that point? Because that roster, when you look at that roster, especially in the 80s, oh my God, jeez.
Oh,
and literally you pick Nikita out of nowhere. It's like, who is this monster? I mean, it's just insane. The Horseman, Dusty, Magnum, Nikita, Ivan is even there. I mean, what a roster.
Tully Blanchard.
Yep.
Arn Anderson. It just goes on. And it started with George Scott. He was the booker. He brought in Johnny Valentine. And Wahoo, and that just started bringing others. Baron von Raschke, he came in. You had the Destroyer. You had who else?
Rip Hawk, Sweet Hansen.
Well, they were with us before. And eventually they sort of they were getting up in age. Getting up in age, at that.
Minnesota Wrecking Crew.
Oh yes, well, they were going in and out because Ole eventually at that time went to Atlanta, become the booker. Down there, but go back and forth. He eventually bought a house down there, and was there. But Gene always stayed in Charlotte.
When you guys start to ramp it up, though, is that George Scott kind of thing, or is that
George, and then Dusty started. It was. Dusty came in and was doing the sort of the creative, I call it Big Show, the sort of like, being the Hulk Hogan or the Randy Savage with the plumes and so forth, and more show to it, and so that wasn't George. George was more wrestling. Then we started doing more videos outside of the program. With we go to Florida and go out and produce these things outside at night with the fire and the cowboy. Dusty come riding up and sort of Magnum be with him and create that. But it's Roddy Piper. He came in, just things just started clicking. People, how did it happen? Right place, right time. In a lot of ways, Wahoo wrestled, in Florida, Texas, Mid-South, up north, never really came for us. George got him to come in. Why he never came for us, I don't know. But George Scott, definitely started it, and the word got out. Arn Anderson came because of Rick. Rick saw Arn at Mid-South, and he came back and said, "I have a tape of another Anderson," and it was Arn on the beach cutting a promo, and we, oh yes, and then Steamboat. Rick was wrestling out. He saw Steamboat in Atlanta. He came back and said, "I can do something with this guy." And he did, And then, well, what? Sting came to us. Sting came to us with Mid-South, which was a bad deal. Not Sting, but Mid-South. We did not do our due diligence with that. And there was a lot of commitments that were made by Mid-South, bills that and we split our business. We had a Texas office and Charlotte office, and that didn't work. Did not work, period.
You guys were stuck with basically their losses?
Yeah, stuck with their losses. Heavy.
Why did you guys do that deal? Did you think that, okay, we got to compete? Why'd you do the deal, though? Is it just to compete with Vince?
I didn't want to. Jimmy did. He thought that Vince was going to buy it. I said, Vince is not going to buy it. Why buy something that's going bankrupt? That just wait and pick up the pieces. But, it was, Jimmy just felt that, Vince is going to get it, and that, we need this area. And two, I don't know this for sure, but I that Jimmy was newly married. Dusty wanted to go home to Texas. This gave them a perfect opportunity to do that. But it was wrong. That we ended up getting an airplane. End up buying 2 airplanes.
Always hear those stories from the guys. How much money that cost?
Well, the G1 was a 16-passenger plane. That actually, in some cases, made sense. It was you figured a 500-mile range. We would take the wrestlers, drop them off, let's say in Cincinnati, okay? And they would wrestle around that area. And we'd have towns book a group of 16, let's say there's 17 counting the ref, and they would do their thing. And then we'd take another group, drop them off in somewhere in Mid-South. Drop them there. And then another group here. So, and then you go back after that week, pick them up, you'd bring them to Charlotte for X number of days so they wash their clothes, something that gone again. Same thing with the other. And 500-mile range, it was turboprop. It would, it would haul. The Falcon 20 made no sense whatsoever. If anything, all it did was cause people to be jealous. Well, I'm not flying on the plane. Why can't I fly on the plane?
Right.
Right? What do you think I am, chopped liver? That made no sense. And that was, at that time, that's also when it really started hitting the fan as far as outrunning the money.
Just too expensive, right?
Pardon?
Those planes got to be pretty expensive.
Oh, yeah. Planes, pilots. But the only one, I didn't like the G1 either. But I could, in my mind, justify it because it helped us expand without paying airplane tickets, passenger service. We could haul all their bags and whatever it is and that worked in a lot of ways. To just use it to fly to Atlanta for TV, no, drive. It's not that far. Saturday morning, I take that back. A lot of the Saturday mornings we would bring them in to Atlanta and then they would fly out, to XYZ, instead of putting them on a Delta or American flight or at that time Eastern. Some of that made sense. Pardon?
Whose idea was the planes? Was that Jimmy or Dusty or both?
Jimmy was the G1. The Falcon 20, the name was Stardust.
Definitely Dusty.
That's all I got to say.
100% Dusty. Okay, yeah.
I don't know that.
Okay.
I just know on the plane said Stardust.
Who actually brought Dusty in to begin with? Is that like
Jimmy? Jimmy did.
Is that because of Eddie Graham, or is that because he's somebody like recommended Dusty as far as coming in and booking?
Eddie Graham. At that time too, Eddie hadn't passed away yet, but then once Eddie passed away, then there was a lot of flux down there, and you had so many owners too of Florida. Are you getting a little pixelation there, or is that me or you?
I'm good here. I don't know. Maybe it might be me. I'm not sure.
Okay, must be me. All right. So, but that, and Jimmy and Dusty hit it off, which, and we also, you got to remember too, that we ran this like our father ran the company. He was the dictator. He was the person. You can't have two people telling people what to do. It just doesn't work. You just can't. And sometimes I guess I'd get my point across. It'd get to the point that, as a family, you are brothers, you go out back and take care of it.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So was it okay though? Like with you, like, okay, we're going to bring Dusty in, like everybody's in agreement, or that's Jimmy's in charge. Jimmy said Dusty's coming in, Dusty's coming in.
Well, Dusty didn't come in. It was Dusty came in as far as for the big shows in Greensboro. He was not really in the office. He was he'd be there for big shows, doing certain things with Jimmy. He was working angles for that, that we had a lot of different people come in. I mean, we had Harley Race come in. We had the Funks, and Dusty was around then. But Dusty, he's a creative guy. I think, he had his ways. I wish I could have read him a little better than I did. That you have to talk to him and see where his head's going, because once it's there, you've got to catch up, and that didn't work a lot of times.
So he's big picture guy. Obviously, he's creating Starcade and War Games. I mean, all these things that really cement you guys, putting you on the map. But it also isn't cheap producing this stuff.
That's right. Yeah, it's like spin the wheel, make the deal. Yeah, I asked him, all right, what movie did you see for that? Yeah. Right. And what was the other one? The one John Wayne with the patch over his eye.
Is it True Grit or McClinton?
Yeah, we had a pay-per-view True Grit. And then War Games. No, War Games was War Games. I don't know where that came from, but that worked out.
Well, part of that is Mad Max, the match Beyond. Remember the cage and stuff? Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he gets a lot of stuff from the movies. I forget Starcade is from a movie too. Yeah.
Yeah. And, so when I finally realized that they're movies, I said, I jokingly always say, all right, what movie are you watching today?
He was definitely a John Wayne fan. That's for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And some of that stuff, they wanted it so fast, it wasn't, I couldn't do it correctly the way I wanted to do it. As far as like we did that 3-tier cage match.
Yep.
So luckily somebody didn't get hurt. I didn't want it the way it was, but that's the only thing we could do in the amount of time that we had, in the building. See, too, you got to remember, you go in a building and you have a midnight move-in, and you've got to be ready. Doors open at 6, so you don't have long. Every now and then, I would get a day before move-in. If I could. I was not there again. When I was booking, as far as this Jim Crockett Promotions, and I was booking the towns, I would, I'd want a day to move in, at least a half day to move in before because it just made perfectly good sense. We were not like a rock show that has been doing it so long they just know. Everything we did was a learning curve. That we didn't have our own stage hands. We didn't have our own lighting crew or sound. It was always someone new. Yeah.
And that's an extra cost too, right? I mean, every time
of course
you're doing that extra cost here, there, and there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And those triple cages were never good either. I mean, they looks great, but the matches itself, terrible.
No. Yeah. Right. It just, because there again, the guys, they look at it and go, oh shit, and they didn't have time to work with it, to understand it. It was a learning curve for them too. They go into it for the first time. So yeah, it's regular cage match. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. But the others, no, that was, no.
So with Dusty, we're saying, big picture guy. Do you think he was a creative genius? What are your thoughts on Dusty as far as creative wise?
You're asking me a loaded question, aren't you?
Yes, that's very loaded. Very, very loaded.
Yeah, it is. I think Dusty was creative. Yes. Now what? and yes.
Good, bad, and different. Obviously, I mean, there's some ups and some downs with Dust.
Yes, ups and downs. That no one can be creative all the time. That you're gonna hit some duds, right? There's no way. I'm not making excuses for him. That when you hire someone, you expect them to do 100% every single day, 24/7. But we are human, and it doesn't work that way. So yes, he had some duds. Oh yes, that he did. And they were pretty big duds, but he had some winners too. So I have a lot of respect for Dusty. That he was willing to, I guess, put his name forward or put himself forward to do it. And Jimmy gave him the chance to do it, and he took off. Then I think if I had to do it all over again, I would explain to both of them about profit and loss. That you can do this.
Right.
You'll be paid on net, not gross. That will wake anybody up. You can't spend $2 million to make $1 million. Because you won't make it.
There's no ROI there. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Now, very friendly with J.J. Dillon. He would always say that he's Dusty's assistant booker. So and he's good friends with Rick. Obviously, I mean that goes. With that, I mean that goes without even saying. But so Rick goes to him and it's like, okay, Dusty and Rick and Dusty and the Horsemen are having this big feud. Rick's like, we're getting beat a lot. We're getting beat up every night. I want to keep my heat. I want to keep my thing. So he was almost like the liaison between Jimmy and Rick, and then Dusty in the middle, and he's trying to trying to not play both sides, but he's trying to almost like be defensive for everybody. Like, oh no, maybe smooth things over in certain ways. He's
playing both sides? No, I like that. Yeah, he JJ with his relationships with Dusty.
Yeah.
That the door was always open to him. The Rick, yes. That in some ways, they could get beat, but after they get beat, they glom the winner, so to speak. Okay, Dusty won, but he's laying in the ring all bloodied, and they're going to have to get the ambulance to pick him up. So they're still throwing cans, rocks at him, right? So it's all in the way you're beaten, and it's the egos. Come on, Rick, Dusty.
Yep.
Oh, there's not enough room in the world, for the ego, and rightfully so.
Pretty epic feud between those two, both behind the scenes and obviously in front of the camera. I mean, two of the all-time greats, but it seems like they would be, battling behind the scenes too, which a lot of people probably weren't aware of.
That is true. I think behind the scenes was better than in front of the camera.
oh yeah. You seen some blow-ups between them?
Not blow-ups. See that they did not get in arguments in front of other wrestlers per se. That did not happen. It's just, it's them voicing their opinions to everybody else. And, and then, we've got our little, rats that'll run and say, you should have heard what Dusty said about Rick. Or, you should have heard what Rick said about Dusty.
Right.
Yeah.
But Dusty knew Rick was the cash cow, right? I mean, he knew he was the draw.
Right. But, Dusty wanted to beat him. Yeah, and Rick wanted to beat Dusty. That's sort of like Dusty wanted to beat Hogan. And Hogan wants to beat Dusty. Hogan wants to beat Flair. Flair wants to beat Hogan. It's the top guys want to beat top guys. They want, they want to be the man, the person that everybody pays attention to. They want to be the person you want the autograph from.
Got any good Nate stories? I know you probably have a ton.
Oh, golly. Uh, well, it's all, Nate. I know we were in Baltimore quite a lot, and the Four Horsemen, they would get on, the TBS show in the mornings. We would tape it there at Turner, and they'd be promoting where they were going to have their party afterwards. At the whether it was the Omni or the Hilton or the Marriott, and Rick would have a suite, and all you girls, here we come, and they would have a party. They would have a party, and Rick. And we've seen with, I think, a lawsuit or two about Rick likes to put on his robe and his belt and nothing else. And, it's happened more than not. And so he would do that at the party and come up behind some unexpected female sitting on a couch and take his Johnson, hit her on the head with it. He would do that. I know that we flew after television to Hawaii from Atlanta nonstop. We drank every bit of alcohol on the plane, even all the cordials. Rick would pour them in this pitcher, then go around and pour them. And of course, he did that. He went into the bathroom and came out in his robe and belt, and and the flight attendants on that flight were sort of taken with him because they were staying at the same hotel, and when I had to catch the plane back, Rick was staying there because they had a match, and I had to find Jimmy because he's supposed to. Well, that time Jimmy wasn't married, and ended up found him. He was in Rick's room with the girl, and Jimmy was there. Jimmy was sucking toes or something, but and Rick's bar bill, $1,200 at least, constantly. At one time you could, before the bar closed, you could buy drinks.
Right. Yep.
So, and Rick loved kamikazes, and I've seen him where he would buy 100 kamikazes.
Oh.
So before the bar closed, so they could have them on the bar and drink them. And I mean, they don't sip them, they chug them. And it just wild times.
Who's paying that bar bill?
He did.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of Rick is Rick. Ric Flair lived his gimmick, and in a lot of ways, even he does that today. But back then, he was Ric Flair, the 60-minute man, wheeling, dealing. His clothes, cars, drink. But there were a lot of parasites, as I call it. That's why he would spend so much. He just wanted people around him. And they would come and, Rick, buy me a drink. And, I'll take a bottle of that Dom Perignon, and Rick just, and then he gets the bar bill and he pays it, or, it just. And I said, Rick, let somebody else pay you. Let somebody buy you a drink.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he,
bar bill must be crazy.
Oh, crazy. If you talk to him some, ask him about his bar bills.
I want to talk to him about it.
Yeah.
They say that now it's out there all over the place because of the recent documentary, but they're saying he does the helicopter trick. It's like, you know what I mean? He takes off the robe, he starts swinging around.
Wait a minute, the helicopter you lost me.
With his nether regions, he spins it around like a helicopter.
Oh yes, well he spins around it. Whack. Yeah, it's his club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess these stories are true about Nate
Oh,
for the most
yes.
part.
Yes, yes. Yeah, he will embellish them, and then other people, but yeah, he didn't mind touchy-feely, you know, with it. Yeah, he'd be glad to show them. And yeah, he was constantly, it's lucky he never caught anything.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
I mean, he was always, his radar was always on for a good looking woman. He just,
I heard that he used to give out Rolexes to some of these women and give them like, gifts and stuff like that. JJ Dillon told me a great story that one time, I guess Rick got pretty drunk, pretty hammered. They're all partying and stuff. Rick goes to his room with this girl. JJ goes to his room in the morning. He's going to head down, get some breakfast and stuff. Rick is still sleeping. He sees the girl in the elevator and he looks at the girl's watch and he's like, that's Rick's like $30,000 Rolex. And JJ had another one, like not a $30,000 one, like a way cheaper one. But so he told the girl that they're switching the watches. So he gave her the cheaper one, and he took it back. He goes, "Rick, $30,000 Rolex." Like he saved Rick from. I guess Rick was so maybe had too much to drink because he was partying too much. He gave her the wrong watch.
He always had too much to drink.
Yeah.
I don't see how he kept in shape, with the amount of alcohol he drank, and
he was
excuse me, Rick. Excuse me, Rick, if you hear this, that when Rick was in the hospital and we thought he was going to die, they had him in intensive care. Well, they had to give him an alcohol drip because he was going through the DTs too. So, that guy just, it's he had a certain level of alcohol in his body constantly.
And it's crazy because he might be in the best shape of anybody. 60-minute man, every night. I mean, man, it's just crazy. And Dr. Tom was just talking to him. He said that he would work out with Flair for a short period of time when they were together. He was puking, and he said he was in great shape. He goes, and Flair's laughing. He's got, he just was an incredible athlete.
All right. Rick was not a big weightlifter. I know at his home, he had a Stairmaster when that was, he'd wear them out, just wear them out. I mean, he was on that. He and Tully too, in the dressing room would do step ups. You have a chair or a bench there, and they would constantly do step ups. And it wasn't anything from them to do 500 Hindu squats. That just, it's just what they do. And it's, to me, it was amazing. How then they go right out and drink. And I think too, because Rick was not so thick as far as muscle, the weightlifter, that it wasn't so tight that he could take the punishment without anything really ripping. That he was in shape. Yes, he would lift some weights, but there again, he was limber enough, and his lungs. And by the way, too, Rick is sort of an asthmatic. Think about that. And I remember when he first came in, he was taking so they had a powder you breathe through this inhaler thing, and he was doing that. But his win is, I don't see how people do it. I don't see how he does it or other people keeping up with him. For anybody to go an hour or 90 minutes in a match, come on.
And he was doing it sometimes twice a night, sometimes every night for 7 days in a row. Yeah, crazy.
Right. Especially when he was world champion. There again, you can't beat him, sort of. So, it's a DQ or it's time limit. It's an hour time limit. So you're going to wrestle, an hour. Or then they say, well, we'll do 90 minutes. Well, you wrestle 90 minutes. So
I love the fact that they need another opponent for Flair. mid '80s. We're starting up Great American Bash. Why don't we use the announcer and have him take the Russian sickle from this 300-pound monster? Why don't we have that happen? So Nikita Koloff knocks your blocks off, and it kind of sets off Flair and Nikita. Is that your idea to do that?
No, it was not my idea. No, it was not. It was no, Dusty, and Jimmy, and they were afraid to ask me. They were afraid to ask me. They'd already talked to Nikita about it, and he was giddy. Oh, he had goosebumps. Well, he said, I had so much fun hitting you with that sickle. Yeah, and
he's a scary guy.
I asked, and I was, and why do you want me to do it? That I'm not going to take it. Just, they had to explain it in detail why and what was going to take place afterwards. And so I finally agreed to it. And, it was like running through the yard when you were a kid at night and, you're playing chase or tag and you didn't realize there's a clothesline there. And all of a sudden, zip. And because I didn't know when he was going to do it, but you could see the gleam in his eye. And it was, so he got it.
He was not light on that either.
No, he was not. He was snug.
Yes.
Yeah.
But hey, they used you as the vehicle to set off Flair versus Nikita. That's pretty good.
Right. Yeah.
And just crazy to think how big he was at that point too.
Yeah. Then I ended up refereeing the match there in Charlotte at the stadium.
What do you think about that? Like, what was your experience like that? I mean, that's pretty cool.
That was, that was cool. And Ivan Koloff was there in Nikita's corner. That was fun. I got, that too, to me, I could, seeing two pros work, and I should say three because Ivan, was there and the combination, there was very little talk in the ring, very little as far as what was going on, and, but it was good. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Obviously, Rick was leading Nikita at that point.
Right. Oh, yes. And then Ivan would just sort of come in just every now and then. He would sort of listen to the crowd and would then, okay, he felt that this is time for me to come in talking about himself. And he would do it or get partial in, and I'd push him out, and Nikita tried to do something, and then, that's, position. So I didn't have to pay attention to Nikita and Rick, and Nikita could sneak something in because I would turn and take, Ivan out. So, but the toughest one for me was Art Nelson, wrestler Art Nelson. He had a boxing match, and I was his second. And our tape fist boxing match. And I had to gig him, cut him.
Yeah.
The first time I'd ever done, you can feel it. He said, deeper, kid, deeper. Because I was just sort of, doing it, like the stick that boxers would, the manager would hold over the eyebrow but that had a razor blade on it. Wow.
Yeah, imagine
I
you go
said,
too
all
deep.
right.
You never did it before. Imagine you go too deep.
No, never did. And and that's what I was afraid of. I've seen guys, hit themselves the wrong way and they hit a vein and it just starts, pulsing out. And that I didn't want. But
damn, they trusted you though. Oof.
Yeah.
The many duties of David Crockett. We didn't even mention the best one.
The best one?
You a commentary.
Oh, Lord. Well, Jimmy and I tossed a coin. and the loser had to announce. So I lost, and I had to announce. Well, Tom Miller, who was our announcer, and we were at WRAL in Raleigh, and Tom was a little tipsy that night, and we just looked. We said, he can't go on. There's no way. So we flipped a coin, and I lost, and that's how it started.
Had you ever done commentary before?
No.
Wow. So just throwing you out there with Tony Schiavone, of all people.
No, well, no. At first, it was Bob Caudle.
Oh, okay.
Bob Caudle, and I learned quite a bit from Bob. And then Tony, when Tony came in, Tony was the announcer for the baseball team that we had. And I wanted to back away some because I wanted to be in the TV truck. And so Tony came down, and so we did two shows. One was the NWA and the other was Worldwide or something. And so we'd do 2 hours on Wednesday nights, Tuesday nights. That's right. And so I did it with him some, and he also did it with Bob Caudle. And that's how he got his start in wrestling.
Look at that. All thanks to you. And look at him still going today, still on TV.
Yeah. Doing great. He's got a book, I think.
Yes.
Right?
Comic
book. Okay. Yeah.
He's an all-time great to me. I love Tony. He's just a natural, but you guys, created the beast, if you will, of Tony.
Yeah. True natural. And, he actually studies it, as far as he's like an encyclopedia of wrestling, it's as far as the talent and what their favorite hold is and background and so forth. Yeah. I knew some of it, but I also knew the wrestlers too, and what their moves were. And I'm just a big fan. Yeah. When I announced, I couldn't, if it was a bad match, I couldn't fake it. Could not fake it at all.
But that's what I liked about you. You were so authentic. If there's a big moment, you're going to go nuts. But I love that as a fan, because you get into it like, oh my God, this is great. But if it's a stinker, as a fan, it's a stinker. And I love it's so authentic. It's like, the announcer kind of knows it stinks too.
Yeah.
But
we'll talk about the weather or anything else. We won't talk about the match.
The enthusiasm was awesome, though. I loved it, especially you and Tony together.
Yeah. We had a good time doing that. Yeah, it really was fun.
If you go back, remember when Nikita turned babyface with Dusty after the Magnum incident?
Right.
Ole and JJ in the cage. You go nuts, which is awesome because it's matching. The crowd is going absolutely ape. They're going.
Oh, yes.
But you matched the intensity. I love it. That's one of my favorite, not matches, it's so short, but I mean, my favorite moments.
Well, that and when we had Rock and Roll Express wrestling, was it the Anderson or the Midnight Express? They went the full show. And I was yelling and screaming so much that I was hoarse after the end of the show. It was an exciting match. You had to be. Even Bob Caudle, he was announcing with me at that time. He strained his voice. That fun.
Gotta love the business, right? I mean, you
have to.
Yep.
It'll eat you alive if you don't. You think about it. It's 24/7, 365 days out of the year. All the holidays, we work. That my family suffered quite a lot for that. I wasn't here for birthdays or, every Christmas we had a wrestling match. Every Thanksgiving we had a wrestling match. 4th of July, no, we didn't wrestle 4th of July, but we wrestled the 3rd and the 5th. and so, that's the traveling, Delta Airlines, I had close to 3 million miles.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Man.
That was with, Turner. Eastern Airlines and Piedmont were the ones as far as out of Charlotte, at that time, and had quite a few on those too. And just going back and forth to Atlanta sometimes. So, but I had my wrestling family and my regular family. And that's, that's the way it is. It's, the fans, you fans are family. Without you, we could have not done what we did. It's sort of the chicken and the egg, I guess. Who comes first? And oh man, I feed off of the fans. I feed, the fans get me going, and the wrestler, that helps. But then, the fans help the wrestler too. Think about COVID and these WWE and AEW wrestling with no fans. That's hard. I mean, that really is hard. Because you don't know if you're really doing something exciting or not. You get no response. So you have to have the fans. That was one thing wrong with WCW when we started doing so much video and talking and no matches. The fans just sort of poo-pooed it, that, they wanted to see wrestling. They wanted to be entertained. They didn't want to watch a TV monitor or a video, and we wanted to tape 2 shows instead of 1. Well, then, it's dead time. And, especially during the week, you've got people with their kids, they need to go to school the next day and you got to get back. Then somebody came up with the idea of having bands play, during the video breaks and so forth. And now they came, not for a band, they came for wrestling.
Yeah,
that was one of the problems that I saw.
Got to have that crowd involvement, and they weren't happy with a lot of that. Yeah,
no, we're not.
I feel like those long shows too exhaust the crowd. Maybe the guys backstage don't realize it, but the crowd is exhausted. 4-hour mark, check out. Yeah, too long.
Yeah, and the matches don't get, especially TV matches. Now, pay-per-view match, a little different story. You're trying to, but TV, a lot of squash matches, and it's just not enough to keep them pumped up. You have to have some highs and lows, beginning, middle, and end. But where that in between was, the lows were too low, too long.
Definitely.
Yeah.
With you and the Crockett's and just, NWA, WCW in general, do you have any regrets, like looking back, anything you wish you would have done differently?
Sure. That not outrun the money, that if we were sold to Turner, I'd like it to be under our terms, not his terms. Maybe I should have, run the company. I just, I don't know. There again, I'll go back. Hindsight's 2020. A lot of things not doing the same. It's just life. Come on, it's sure, would I want to be like Vince, billionaire? Maybe. I don't know. What would I do with all that money? Yeah. Money doesn't buy you everything. As you well know, a wonderful family, that money's not going to buy you that time with your, more time with my kids. Yes, definitely. Matter of fact, I told my children afterwards, I can't make up for the time I missed with you, but with my grandchildren, which I have 4. And I said, I'm not going to miss anything with them. And so, and I don't, I'm the silly grandfather. Yeah. Yeah.
Spoil them. Yeah.
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah. I have a good time with them. One of them's 18 now. So, yeah.
Growing up fast.
Yes. Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Now, with you and your brother, obviously, did you guys always have a good relationship, or was it rocky? Because I could have sworn I remember that you guys didn't talk for a while, but then you guys kind of reconciled. Is that true?
Yes, we didn't talk for a while. It was Jimmy made his deal with Turner before he even came to talk to us about it. And he said, "Hey, you guys do your thing. I've already got my deal." So quite a few years, they're good because I fought it, even though I was the one that, I and Jackie got through it. I didn't talk to him for quite a few years because I was firmly convinced he let his ego get in the way of good business sense. And I have to blame myself. Come on, I can't just blame him. The longest time I just wanted to, take him out back. But I should have. I saw it, and I should have just, I don't know what, that once he went to Dallas, he and Dusty, it was beginning of the end. And we could have, and Mid-South, there again, to this day, we shouldn't have bought them. We just could sit there and wait until they filed Chapter 11, whatever it is, and taking it over then. Pick up the pieces.
And then take some of the talent, like Sting.
Yeah. And not the debt. And not the building. The rent, the lease on that building. God, what a nice looking building too it was.
It is crazy.
The airplanes, they're the deal with Jim Babb and Jefferson. The governor of North Carolina was willing to help us then. So, it was, he wouldn't listen to it. Would not. And the governor at that time, Jim Martin, was a good friend of his. But they ended up calling me because Jimmy wouldn't take his call. Jimmy wouldn't take Jim Babb's call either. Yeah.
Crazy to look back and say, like, wow, it's just thriving. One of the greatest territories of all time, all of a sudden gone. Turner scooped it up, and obviously then 13 years later, Turner's gone. It just, man, wrestling business is crazy. With Vince still doing his thing, making billions of dollars.
And I have to say, I am very happy that he is, in that it shows that you don't have to be a television person, to do well in television. That was, you're a wrestling company. You can't do this as well as, I graduated from Southern Cal, film school. big deal. Yeah. Right. So
Right.
yeah, that.
So as we towards the finish here, head towards the wind down, I just got to know: do you have like favorite wrestlers, like for yourself, like Nate and Dusty? Like, do you have favorites, or it's like impossible to think like I don't really have anybody favorite, even as like a commentator? Anybody like really stick out, like you really enjoyed?
Oh, I enjoyed, with the Four Horsemen. Those interviews were just. I'd have to back away, and because I was laughing. I mean, just the comments they'd come up with. Roddy Piper. Oh, I could listen to him all day long. He was just, off the wall. A great individual, too. Really was. He was so into his interviews. I mean, he would study. He'd have a notebook, and he would write down, we'd ride down the road, and he would write down comments that were being made on the radio or so forth. And, I like this. And then he goes on, and he was very current in his conversations on television. I guess, I did so much with Rick and the Four Horsemen and Roddy. That was so current. But yeah, those would be my group, I guess you might say.
Pretty good group right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
As far as like things you didn't get accomplished, like did you ever want to work for WWE, or nah, no way, like you could never work there? Does that ever like cross your mind?
It crossed my mind, but they told me that it wouldn't happen. When they came in and the last Nitro, we come in and back to the office, and they have security people there and shut all the phones off, and they watch you about what you can take out of the office, and all that, and they make this this comment, have us in this room that would be willing to consider people here. It was a joke. Yeah. So
did you ever have a conversation with Vince, or no, never?
I've talked to Vince before, but not afterwards. No. I don't know if I understand there's a lot of yelling and screaming going on. I wouldn't stand for that. No. When you yell and scream, you've lost control. That you can go back outside, and once you get control, then you can talk to me. But yelling and screaming, man, that all that does is make me shut down. I learned that with the Red Cross. I had some manager person when I went to Katrina in Monroe, Louisiana. And this guy was yelling and screaming at me. And I looked at him. I said, you go outside and get control of yourself. And when you do, you can come back in and talk to me. But this is not going to happen. I said, what are you going to do? You going to fire me? I'm a volunteer. You going to send me home? Oh, that's terrible. You're going to cut my pay? You don't pay me anything. So, I'll be glad to go home. But you've lost control, and you need to get control. Then I'll talk to you. So I probably could not. Now,
Seems like
AEW? Sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
hey.
Yeah.
Tony Khan.
Tony Khan. Hey, Tony Khan. How you doing, Tony?
Hey, he loves bringing in legends. Look, hey, Sting is over there wrestling. Look,
yeah.
He loves bringing in the legends.
Wrestle. Now, I did do, when they were here in Charlotte, I did do some commentating over Dark and Elevation with Tony.
That, yes. Yep.
Tony. And I told Tony Khan afterwards, I said, we made a mistake. I said, I didn't realize how much I missed it until I did it. And yes, I do miss it more than I really thought. I had saw everything pushed down. Everything was, quiet. Had all this stuff in boxes and put away, and carrying on with my life, and work in the yard, do a lot of different things, grandkids, and you name it, volunteer, and then you do this, and there's something burning inside me that I wonder if I need to push. I don't know. And it would take I would need to learn the talent, learn their moves. There would definitely be study time, time to watch tapes, be around the talent, get to know them. I mean, with WCW and JCP, I knew the talent. I knew them inside and out. I got drunk with them, that we'd eat and sleep and, go on trips together, party together. So, I knew their families. So, that was easy. To the new breed, yeah.
Do you watch?
I don't know. I don't know if I would probably have to voice my opinion. I don't know if that's allowed.
Right, probably not.
Yeah. So,
do you watch a lot of current wrestling or not really?
Not really. I watch AEW just because I'd like to see them succeed. We need you need two choices. I think Vince made a mistake by not keeping WCW. As they talked about it at first, separate group, sort of challenging each other, which perfectly good sense. Even though you can control it, but it didn't work that way for him. I think that, for fans, you need a choice, between the two. AEW's, they're smaller, they're fast. There's not as much production, I guess. I mean, I don't talk about the pre-production, but as far as the lights and pyrotechnics and so forth, as Vince, you shouldn't try to be like Vince. You need to be something different. Like that group in Atlanta, the NWA, that take their matches sort of like at TBS, but it's at public television there. I said, okay, that makes sense. Be different, be good, but be different.
Right. What would you say is the legacy of the Crockett family, yourself included, obviously, but your dad, Jimmy, Jackie, Francis, even Debbie does a Crockett Foundation. I mean, what's the legacy, the stamp?
That we left an impression. We've left memories to people of your age, older, even now younger people are watching, our wrestling, that it gives me a satisfaction that Jimmy and I both thought we failed, with the sale of Turner. And in some ways we did. But they we didn't fail when we had it. We did not fail because you are talking to me now.
Right.
Fans on Facebook. When I went on Facebook, I was blown away. I said, all these people want to be friends with me. I mean, right now I think it's about 1,700. I went, this is crazy. That people remember and even Jimmy, when I took him to Baltimore, it was for Conrad Thomas. That Jimmy made the comment that he said, "David, I can't believe these fans remember all this." I said, "Yeah, they remember more than we do. As far as asking the questions about certain matches and this and that." I said, "That's the legacy, that we're still giving joy, satisfaction and entertainment to a segment of the population that I'm crazy about. That, we are not, it's middle America. I think that's where we, we are. That, that's the satisfaction. That's the legacy that, that I hope that, that people still watch it. So like we watch things on Turner Television, the classic movies, that this is always going to be classic. That's great. That's fine with me. That'll be the legacy, that, that we have left something that will, I hope, stand the test of time, maybe. What do you think?
I think it has. And then some.
All right. I
mean, hell, people are still doing conventions based around all of you guys from the NWA. It's basically Crockett conventions.
Yeah. Before we leave, I've got one thing. I used to read a lot of the fan mails that we get at the office, and I had one from a student at the School of the Blind in North Carolina, talking about how much he enjoyed the matches. And I had to find out what he was talking about. So it's not that far of a trip. And we had a match up in Marion, North Carolina. So I went up there and went to look the student up, and he said, "Oh yeah, we all enjoy it." And he said, watching it, and he said, he sort of laughed. He said, "We can envision, from the way you're talking and the sound of your audio person, that, we can envision being right there in the ring or ringside." And that was so satisfying to me, to, that I'll never forget that.
Wow.
That
powerful stuff. Wow.
That's powerful. So
he felt it, yeah.
I mean, he felt it. That, and I guess maybe that's where I get my enthusiasm from. That I always want everyone to feel like they're at ringside. That they can feel the pain and the joy.
Love it.
All right.
But David, thank you so much for all the time. This has been an honor for me, and great to finally connect with you and talk to you. I could talk to you for days, but this has been great. Thank you so much.
John, thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope that everybody that watches your program definitely enjoys it, because I'm trying to, I guess, answer the questions that people put in the messages on Facebook. This, I think, is the best way for me to do it. Be wrong, but I can get the most people this way. So really, thank you for asking me to be on. I really appreciate it.